Volare, whoa, cantare, oh. Let's fly way up to the clouds, away from the maddening crowds. Well, that's enough singing. You did, after all, tune in to hear about automotive history and not me tuning my vocal pipes, but I thought that you would enjoy that. Yes, this is the Plymouth Volare, which, by the way, means to fly. So every time you see a Plymouth Volare, you have to make sure that you sing the title of the vehicle. Of course, you can't really do that with the Dodge Aspen, that I guess is named after the city in Colorado. But in any case, the Volare and the Aspen, the most recalled cars in history to the point in which they were produced, mostly for stalling problems, I believe, were otherwise generally decent vehicles and certainly became more and more decent over time as they evolved into the M-body Chryslers, which were pretty ubiquitous in the 1980s, especially when it came to being used in fleets like taxi cabs as well as police cars, because they were indeed very durable with either slant 6 engines or 318 cubic inch V8s under hood and torque flight transmissions. And even if you don't recall the Volare and Aspen, many of us certainly recall the Chrysler Fifth Avenue, Dodge Diplomat, Plymouth Grand Fury, as I mentioned, the M-body Chryslers that were produced all the way up until the late 1980s. But there's an entire history to these Aspen and Volare twins, as well as the subsequent M-body Chryslers, that some folks, or at least many of us, don't even know about. And that is that these vehicles were actually turned into exotic cars. Yes, I said that right. Exotic Aspen and Volares. I'm going to stop doing that now, but be sure to hit the like button if you liked my singing, or even if you didn't like my singing. And then tell me in the comment section if you did. In any case, as I was mentioning, somehow somebody thought that it would be a great idea to turn the Aspen and Volare into exotic vehicles. And that somebody and that company was Monteverdi. The company was founded by a gentleman named Peter Monteverdi, and it was founded in 1967 and then went defunct in 1982. But over that period of time, Monteverdi produced some really interesting and actually, in many cases, great-looking exotic vehicles. Again, it was a Swiss company, but they often employed their own styling over top of Chrysler powertrains or even chassis. The Monteverdi High Speed, I think, is one of my favorites. The High Speed Coupe, or even the four-door, is also a gorgeous-looking design. And these vehicles had Chrysler 440s and torque flight transmissions. So you got the exotic car, and you had the reliability of a 440 big block as well as a torque flight underneath, which was an extremely reliable combination. However, by the time the Sierra came along, Monteverdi was getting a little bit desperate and looking for projects where they could at least share some components with the existing vehicle. And as a consequence, you can tell in the photos here of this Monteverdi Sierra that the midsection of the body, the doors, the glass, the roof, the windshield, I believe, is also shared, but the backlight is different. It kind of has this plan view curvature, as you can see here, whereas the Aspen Volare backlight was just simply flat. So overall, there were a lot of shared components. I'm surprised that Monteverdi even used the Chrysler door handles. It's kind of a dead giveaway, along with the doors themselves, that this vehicle really wasn't designed from scratch by somebody other than Chrysler. But that's what they did. As I mentioned, they were getting a bit desperate during this time frame. I did mention the styling up front was unique as well as out back, and I think the front styling is actually pretty good looking. There is one strange item that I noted here in the photos, and that is that the Monteverdi seems to have lost Chrysler's articulating driver's side wiper that had a 4-bar linkage associated with it, so that the white pattern on the wiper was more vertical at the end of its travel. For whatever reason, it doesn't appear that the Monteverdi Sierra has that articulating wiper. It's just kind of a standard wiper arm. So not sure why they did that, but it appears that they indeed did. I must say, though, that Monteverdi, I think, did a really good job of blending the front fender and the overall shape of it into the doors and then the rear quarter panel. Remember, as I said, the doors are shared on this vehicle with the Aspen and Volare, so Monteverdi would have had to blend the styling and the surfacing of their fender and the rear quarter panel into the already existing sheet metal for the doors. And I think they did a pretty good job of that. As we flip to the inside, we'll see that Monteverdi tried to do some unique things to the interior to try to jazz it up a little bit, but it still has quite a few Chrysler M-Body parts bin components. The first thing you'll notice is that they replaced the typical Aspen Volare instrument cluster and the speedometer with these dual round speedometer, tachometer, and then off to the right, you can see various gauges as well to help you understand oil pressure, engine temperature, battery voltage. So they put in new gauges, but notice that the instrument panel structure is clearly the same, that somewhat driver-centric structure. The glove box door is the same. The accelerator and brake pedal are the same. You can tell that those are Chrysler components if you're a Chrysler aficionado. If you take a look off to the right, you'll notice that even the door handle is the same as what was on the Aspen and Volare interiors. Of course, the steering wheel is clearly different, and some of the controls over there are different, as the instrument panel itself does indeed have a genuine, well, let's say unique look about it that's different from the Aspen and Volare. And I really miss the Aspen, Volare, and subsequent M-Body HVAC controls, where you could push the buttons, and if you wanted the air conditioning activated, you pushed the button in, and if you didn't, you pulled it back out. Whether that was for the bi-level setting, the vent setting, or even the defrost, you could pull that lever back out and disengage the air conditioning compressor if you so wanted. And while you did have to put up with some of the instrument panel of the Aspen Volare, you at least got some seats that were unique to the Monteverdi, cloaked in beautiful leather. So those looked at least good and were befitting of the vehicle, whereas the instrument cluster kind of looked like an afterthought, to be honest. Rear seat room in these was pretty good, as you can see here, and you got, again, unique leather stitching and patterns for your Monteverdi Sierra. I do believe there's a coach light there on the B-pillar, which I don't believe was on any of the other Chrysler, Aspen, Volare vehicles, or even the subsequent M-Body, so I guess they added that for a little bit of ambiance in the interior. Overall, not a bad place to be, but not necessarily befitting of an exotic car like the Monteverdi. Under hood in these, the Chrysler 440 torque flight combination was unfortunately long gone. And by this point, since Monteverdi was using the Aspen and Volares, these beautiful vehicles, if you can call them that, under hood now had Chrysler's 318 cubic inch V8. Wah wah. Didn't quite have the same zip as the previous Monteverdis, but you did basically get a 318 police car version under hood with a 4-barrel carburetor making 175 horsepower. So you got about 40, 45 horsepower more than the 318 2-barrel V8s that would have been under hood of many of these Aspen and Volares, as well as the subsequent M-Bodies. And gave you a little bit of zip, but certainly didn't have the same zip as the previous Monteverdis had, as I said, with the 440 under hood. Overall, the Monteverdi Sierra was not a great success, and it appears that Monteverdi made about 20 of these before calling it a day. And as I mentioned, the company would go defunct not that long after they introduced these in the late 1970s, and it would go belly up in 1982. So this was a bit of their last gasp. But if you haven't heard of an exotic Chrysler Aspen Volare or M-Body, now you have, and let me know what you think of it in the comments section. Thanks again for watching. Until next time, take care.